Key West, Florida, paradise of sunshine and clear waters. But beneath the tropical veneer lies a history steeped in shipwrecks, voodoo, and darkness. And the darkest thing in Key West isn't a place. It's a plaything. Our story begins in 1904 at the imposing Victorian home of the wealthy Otto family. They had a young son, Robert Eugene Otto, known to everyone simply as Gene. The Otto family was strict, and by many accounts, cruel to their staff. The legend goes that a Bahamian servant, pushed to her breaking point and well-versed in the dark arts of voodoo and hoodoo, decided to exact a peculiar revenge. Before vanishing, she gifted young Gene a doll. Standing 3 feet tall, stuffed with Excelsior wood wool, and dressed in one of Gene's own childhood sailor suits. The doll was unique. It had black bead eyes that seemed to absorb light, and a strange, smirking grin. Gene loved it instantly. He named the doll after himself, Robert. And from that day on, Gene was never seen without Robert tucked under his arm. But this was no ordinary attachment. It was a pact. First, the parents found it cute. Gene would spend hours in his room talking to Robert. But soon, the cute behavior turned unsettling. Servants and the Otto parents would often overhear Gene in his bedroom, having animated conversations. They would hear Gene's soft, childlike voice asking a question, and then silence, followed by a response. But the responding voice didn't belong to Gene. It was deeper, guttural, something that didn't sound human. When asked about it, Gene would simply shrug. "I was talking to Robert," he'd say, and Robert was talking back. The atmosphere in the house began to shift. The air grew heavy. A sense of being watched settled over the hallways. The servants began to quit, whispering that the sailor doll in Master Gene's room was alive. The terror escalated from whispers to violence. In the dead of night, the Otto household would be woken by horrifying screams coming from Gene's bedroom. They would burst in to find chaos. Furniture overturned. Toys mutilated. Gene curled in a corner, sobbing uncontrollably. When his furious parents demanded to know what he had done, Gene would point a trembling finger at the doll sitting innocently on the bed. His defense was always the same 3 words, a phrase that would become legendary in Key West. Robert did it. It wasn't just inside the house. Neighbors began reporting impossible sights. They claimed that when the family was out, they could see Robert moving from window to window, peering out at the street with those black, abyssal eyes. Gene grew up. He became a prominent artist, married a woman named Anne, and inherited the family home. But he never outgrew Robert. Gene built a special room for Robert in the attic, complete with child-sized furniture. Gene would spend hours up there, painting, with Robert always watching over his shoulder. His wife and despised the doll. She felt its malevolence seeping down through the ceiling boards. She begged Gene to lock it in a trunk, to burn it, to destroy it. Gene refused. He was bound to the doll. For decades, Robert ruled the attic. Local children would cross the street to avoid walking near the Otto house, terrified of seeing the small figure watching them from the highest window. The house became a local legend, a place where a doll held a man hostage. In 1974, Gene Otto died. His wife and sold the house quickly and fled Key West, leaving Robert behind in the attic, finally locked inside a cedar chest. A new family moved into the Victorian mansion. They had a 10-year-old daughter. While exploring her new home, she found the dusty chest in the attic. She pried it open. Robert had been found. Whatever dormancy Robert had entered ended the moment that lid opened. Almost immediately, the new family experienced the same terror the Ottos had endured 70 years prior. The little girl began screaming in the night. She told her parents the doll was moving around her room, that it sat at the foot of her bed and giggled. The final straw came the night she claimed the doll climbed onto her chest and tried to attack her. The family didn't hesitate. They donated Robert to the East Martello Museum. They wanted him out of their house. They wanted him out of their lives. Today, Robert sits inside a secure glass case at the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West. He sits on a small wooden chair, clutching a stuffed lion, staring out at the thousands of tourists who come to visit him every year. But just because he is caged doesn't mean he is dormant. Museum staff report chilling activity. Cameras malfunction only when pointed at Robert. Fresh batteries drain in seconds. Employees arriving in the morning find Robert in a different position than they left him the night before. And sometimes, when the museum is quiet, they hear the faint sound of a child giggling from inside the glass. Robert is the undisputed king of the museum. And like any king, he demands respect. There is a strict rule when visiting Robert. If you want to take his picture, you must ask his permission politely. And you must thank him afterward. If you mock him, if you laugh at him, or if you take his photo without asking, the legend says a curse will befall you. Don't believe it? Look at the walls surrounding his exhibit. They are plastered with hundreds of letters from all over the globe. Letters from skeptics who visited, mocked the doll, and then lost their jobs, their marriages, their health. They write to Robert, begging for forgiveness, begging him to lift the curse. So, if you ever find yourself in Key West, go say hello to Gene Otto's best friend. But remember your manners, because Robert is watching, and Robert never forgets a face.